Hello, I'm Celeste, and this is Week by Week. On today's episode, my husband Dave and I start out with a lighter conversation about things we no longer have space for in our lives since becoming parents. And then later on, our guest is the wonderful Jaimie Kelton. Let's do this.
Fancy seeing you here.
Fancy seeing you here. It's like one of our few moments where we actually spend time together during the day at this point.
It is. And we're so close. So we're next to the mic. It's good to see you.
It's nice to see you too. Oh my gosh. I think I told you this, but I was with our son and I was telling a story to my sister. I said, damn. And he started repeating it and he was like, damn, damn, damn. And then I started laughing, which of course made him do it more. And then we were talking later on and I was like, okay, well, I'm going to spell out the next word. And I don't know why it felt like I needed to swear in order to get this story across, but it felt essential to the story. And I was like, yeah, and then something, ASS. And then our son was like, ASS. And I was like, oh, great. So there's no way to do this. I'm just going to have to try to.
He's too good a mimic now.
It was so funny. Okay, so I thought that we would keep today on a lighter note.
Let's keep it light and breezy.
Let's keep it light and breezy because that's all I think that my emotions can handle right now. A couple months ago, there was a piece in the New Yorker in the Shouts and Murmurs section by Jessie Klein, and it was called Things I Don't Have Room For as a Mother. And she lists like, 4 bullet points of like funny things that she no longer has time for, including like standing in line for brunch. So I thought we could list a couple things that we no longer have time for as parents. What comes to mind?
Well, in the article, she says TikTok.
Uh-huh.
And for me, I would just blow that out to any social media at all.
Yeah. I have never been on TikTok, but I probably should figure it out at some point, but maybe I don't need to.
But do you need to figure it out?
I don't know.
There's always going to be another one, and that one's going to be the new one, and then there's going to be another one after that. It's like Star Wars shows. There's always going to be more of them, and they're all going to be fine.
You honestly have never sounded more like a dad than you did in that moment.
That's why I'm leaning into it. That's what this is about.
That's what this is about. I will say, I don't even know how to watch a TikTok video because I can't figure out how to open it up if you're not going through the app. So it's truly just been like boxed off in my world. One that came to mind for me, starting on the lighter side, I can't start my night going out at 10 p.m. anymore. Like, do you remember when we would leave at like 9:45 to go to a bar and like then we'd have dinner after that? Like that is not on the table for me anymore.
And before we left, we would do shots.
Yeah, then we'd have some drinks before, maybe do a shot. Like it was great. It was so fun. And I'm so glad that I did that. And now I'm like, how did I do that?
The amount of late night dinner, I almost said dinner appointments. That's how out of practice we are. I literally, my brain said it's a dinner appointment, not even a reservation, an appointment. That's where I'm at.
Well, and you and I both did improv shows, and you had a standing show that started at 10. And now I'm wondering, I can't remember if I had a standing show that started at 10 or 11 p.m., but it was one of those things.
It was 11 p.m.
That is wild. That is wild. And I know I sound so lame now, but that's the reality. Like, I just don't know. And then I'd get up and go to work really early in the morning. I mean, it was just crazy. So that was the first one that came to mind. Okay, your turn.
I very much enjoy sports and things that I don't have room for in my life right now. Watching an entire game of anything. I don't know when the next time will be that I will watch an entire game of anything. It might be me having to go in person to a game.
Yeah.
Will be the next time that I could watch an entire game. And even then, I put the odds on the whole thing at very low.
But would you call that you don't have room for it in your life anymore? Like, you're not interested in that? Or would it be like you don't have room for it in your life because logistically that's just an impossible feat right now?
Well, now we're splitting hairs. But I guess it's the second. It's the latter. I see what you're saying. The assignment is more things you just don't have room for, like qualitatively.
Well, I'm open to your interpretation, but to get clinical, I do think there's an interesting differentiation between the two, because one is like, you know what? I'm fine not having that in my life. That's just like no longer going to be something that fits. And then one thing is like, there's just no way with the flow of my existence right now.
I have one. I don't have room for the online outrage machine over all shows on TV and streaming. I don't have time to keep up with or
hot
room
takes.
for hot takes, but also like the discourse about how Stranger Things' episodes are too long, or, you know, their use of Kate Bush. You're mad that something you love has been exposed to a new audience, and they love it too. What is the outrage problem? Like, what is the tissue issue? It's just ridiculous.
I see. Okay, yeah. I can get behind that one.
I don't have room for these beefs.
Okay, so I have one more lighter one, and then one more slightly deeper one, but we're still keeping it light. As light as I'm capable of keeping anything. I don't have space for true crime in my life anymore. I was such a true crime podcast listener and took all the deep dives on all of those kind of notable cases, and I can't take it anymore. It makes me so sad and so stressed out and so anxious that it's turned into something that is no longer even slightly enjoyable. And that was such a surprise for me, but it's something that I just can't do anymore.
Yeah. Who are you? When I first met you, that was what you were all about.
Well, to be fair, when we first met, it was very, very popular too. And you know how trendy I am.
Yeah, it was pretty much peak true crime.
Oh my
That's
God.
true.
We're getting a lot of voices from you today.
I mean, I'm just full of beans. What do you want?
Oh my gosh. You're such a dad.
You know, you're destined to have it happen, but I think it's important just to say it out loud.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't have room for my beloved single friends and their discussions of, I'm so tired, I'm so stressed, I'm so strung out. It's like, yeah, we're all trying to fly the plane, but sometimes there's a difference between flying the plane tired and flying the plane one-handed with one hand over your eye. I mean, it's just like hard.
That is an incredibly hot take, because I think in terms of the online outrage, you really just put a hot take out there. I will say that.
What does that mean?
Because
is that an online discourse subject that I have been avoiding because of my previous?
I would say the comparison between parent and non-parent can definitely stir up some emotions, I would say.
I don't doubt it. And
I'm not saying that your answer is wrong. I'm just saying it's a hot take.
Well, it's my take, so it can't be wrong. But the thing that I should say and meant to say is that when I was on the flip side of it, I definitely had thoughts, but I think those thoughts are wrong.
You had thoughts like, well, I'm still tired. I'm still whatever. And now you're like, wait, I'm next level tired. Is that kind of the specific?
Yeah. But also like stresses and things like that. I think that my single person take was for people that I knew that had kids that were in couples or had partners, like, you get to do it with somebody, you know, that's part of the fun of it, you know, or that's part of the, you know, the deep benefit of it.
And it is fun, right, baby?
It is fun, and it does have deep benefits. And deep benefits are not the word I wanted my brain to come up with, but that's where it went, and that's what I got.
Deep benefits.
Deep benefits is not what I was trying to say. I can't tell you I still can't call up the word I'm trying to think of, but it wasn't deep benefits.
It has deep benefits. Okay, so then the last one that comes to mind for me, and I have not fully removed myself from this thought pattern, but I'm so much further away from it than I think I've ever been in a long, long time. And that is, I spend a lot less time thinking about what other people think. You know, how much what someone might have received from me from an interaction, or whether or not somebody likes me, being a full people pleaser, being somebody who loves getting affirmation and feeling like I'm good and good enough. I think for the first time in my life, I'm like, wow, that is maybe something I'll struggle with forever, but it is so time consuming, and I just don't have the bandwidth to spend a lot of time in that headspace anymore.
You're here.
Our guest today is Jaimie Kelton. Jaimie is the podcast host of If These Ovaries Could Talk and the author of a book by the same title. She's also an actor, dancer, singer, voiceover artist, and mother, so she does it all. And I really loved talking to her. We share her experience with IVF and secondary parent adoption and queer families and breastfeeding and some of the vulnerabilities and guilt that can come up around breastfeeding. And I just found her so incredibly engaging and had a wonderful time chatting with her. So let's do this. Thank you so much for being here with me today.
Thank you for having me, Celeste. I'm excited.
Me too. To start out, do you mind just telling me a little bit about who you are and the work you do?
Well, I'm Jaimie Kelton. I am a producer and co-host of If These Ovaries Could Talk, the Queer Families podcast. It's a podcast where we interview queer families about how they made their families, how they show up in the world that is not predominantly made for folks like us. I am a queer mom. I have a wife, Anne, and we have 2 children, a daughter who's 8 and a son who's 4. On top of that, I also have a book that was based on the podcast, If These Ovaries Could Talk, the things we've learned about making an LGBTQ family, that I co-wrote with my host, who is actually no longer with the podcast, Robin Hopkins. And I'm also an actor, singer, dancer, voiceover artist.
To start out, I'd love to dive into your personal experience with pregnancy, fertility, and your journey toward motherhood.
We are a queer family. We're in a lesbian relationship. So we have options for how we make those families. And it's never, ever just, like a straight down the line. We got pregnant. We made babies. So my wife carried our first because my wife's a little bit older. My wife, Anne, never wanted to carry a child. It was always going to be me who was going to have the baby. And then shortly after we were married, we were in a bar drinking beer, two self-respecting lesbians would do. And she just blurted out you know what? I think I want to carry, which changed the entire trajectory because I have always wanted to get pregnant and carry a child my whole life. I drank the Kool-Aid of how amazing it could be. And a little disclaimer, it was not amazing for me. It was not. I thought I was going to be Mama Earth. I was not. It was always going to be me. So it changed. So that put us back to the drawing board. Okay, well, you're a little bit older. That means we have to start right now. She's 7 years older than me.
How was that for you emotionally to grapple with that change?
It was really hard because my career was popping. I was in theater back then. I did musical theater and I was booked. Gig after gig, and us deciding to start a family was going to change that. So that was a huge transition for me. And also, I wasn't prepared to be the non-bio mom. That was not something that I ever thought about or wished for. I wanted to have a biological connection to my child or my children, which it sounds selfish, but we tell people on our podcast all the time, you know what? Your choice is your choice.
Yes.
Everybody comes to it for whatever reason they do. And you have to own it and be proud of what you want to do and who you want to be in life, right?
Yes.
So I had to grapple with the idea of being the non-bio mom. And I had to grapple with the idea that after she got pregnant and had a baby, maybe we decide we don't want a second and then I don't get to. And that really scared
That's huge.
Me. Yeah. And I'm just one of those people who go to doom no matter what. So I was like, no. Then I basically made her, if there was a contract that she had to sign with blood, that I wouldn't have done that. I made her swear up until the day we were trying for baby number 2 that yes, we were going to have 2. Yes, we were going to have 2. No matter what happens, we're going to do 2. I'm going to get my chance. Yeah. So that was tough. But my wife got pregnant relatively easy, as queer folk can. IVF. She tried IUIs a bunch of times. We come to the table missing a part that is needed for creating a child. So all of us, most of us families, except the rare, maybe there's a trans individual in the couple and they can actually baby dance the normal way, which is like a diamond in the rough, and some folks can do it that way. But most of us LGBTQ folks need assistance, outside assistance to create our families. So we go into this a lot in my podcast. And even when there's two lesbians like me and my wife who go the IVF route, who get an anonymous sperm donor from a sperm bank, even if it looks exactly the same on paper, the story is always immensely different.
Well, just the way it feels to live it, I'm sure is, it's going to hit everybody differently. What was your process in picking a sperm donor?
We talk a lot about on the podcast about this thing we have self-termed LGBTQ drafting or queer drafting, where we basically use whatever the queer couple before us did that we know. So we had a couple of friends who had gotten pregnant the queer way, and so we went to them and asked them what they did, and we basically copied them. So that's how we decided to use an anonymous donor who agrees to be known once the child or children turn 18. So it's a known donor, is what an open donor. Sperm banks are veering more towards only having open donors at this point because the ramifications of creating a child where they would not ever get to know that part of their DNA is a terrible prospect for many donor-conceived kids. And so they are slowly, legislation is being made slowly to do away with completely anonymous donors, which I think is good because, our kids deserve to know that part of their DNA.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so we went to the bank, and the bank, the sperm bank, you get pictures, and you can pay a little extra for extra pictures. You can pay extra for an essay. You can get a voice recording. They have all kinds of stuff. It's kind of crazy. You can just go and you shop at a sperm bank and you type in the things you're looking for. And my wife and I, we both kind of look similar, but we knew each of us was going to carry. So we wanted the child to reflect both of us, and we are lucky that we actually have similar characteristics. And so we went with looks that look kind of like each of us. We call it the search for Superman because you get crazy. You get insane because you have all of these options in front of you. And when you type in your parameters, and it runs the gamut what folks want. But for us, we wanted the children to reflect us in looks. And then also we wanted them to be athletic. And then we wanted them to be musical because I'm musical. And, you type in all your things. So it does narrow it down. But you start getting insane. Like people make binders with the prospects and they rate them and they do all, you can get deep into this. We talked to a couple on the podcast who took like 2 years to choose their donor because they just couldn't. Yeah. Because for instance, I wasn't going to choose a donor because they had acne when they were a teenager. Like everybody has acne but you get you get into this. Oh no, acne. No, we can't have that. We can't have that. I don't know. It's the search for Superman. And some of us get a little, we forget about the genetics we're bringing to the table. I have acne,
Oh my God, me too.
I have alcoholics all up and down my family, but I'm bringing that to the table. But we get insane. And then in the end, you start to realize that it doesn't all matter. It all matters immensely, but it doesn't matter that much because there was one moment we had where we were talking about, oh God, we got to pick someone. And then we thought, well, should we use this friend of ours we had? Should we do a known donor? Should we do that? And we were talking about it. And then we came to the realization that this friend of ours had none of the attributes we were looking for in this donor at the bank. None of them. But it didn't matter because we loved him.
So did you?
No, then we didn't go with the known donor because the legal, that was too scary for us. You have to really dot your I's and cross your T's when it comes to the known donor route. And we just weren't prepared for that. So we went back and we just chose someone because you're going to get the kid. You're going to love the kid. You're going to love the kid no matter what.
Yeah. And it brings up that nature versus nurture element too of, because while you're describing it, it's so interesting because it's sort of like seeing into the future or seeing into this potential future. And you can so quickly start to think about teenager, 20s, what are the things that they're going to be able to either avoid or be more prone to. So it sounds like a really fascinating process, but also really hard because I bet a lot of weight goes on your shoulders.
A lot of weight and a lot of choosing. Our families are never accidents. There are no LGBTQ family accidents. We start from the get-go making decisions. are so intentional with creating our families because we know it's going to take help. We have to decide which route we're going to go. Who's going to carry? Or if you're a gay male couple, are you going to get a surrogate? Are you going to get an egg donor? Are you going to adopt? There's so many choices to make. So we start at the drawing board, planning, intentionality up the wazoo. And so it's just funny. We joke all the time, for people to go after our families, it's insane. We worked hard for these children. Yeah. And many of us spent a lot of money to make them. It's just a funny thing. We work real hard to make these little humans that hate us in the end. It's also a good lesson in parenting, our journey to parenthood as queer folks. You have no control in the end. You realize you really have no control. And that's the best lesson in parenting in the world, because once they come out, they're in control. You have no control anymore. It's all done.
Yeah.
All your semblance of control in any way is out the window. So.
Yes. I'm waking up at 5:30 right now because that's when my son just wants to wake up every morning. And that's just my reality.
Yeah. How old is he?
20 months. 20 months.
Oh, yeah. Been there.
We're at that. Go back and forth with a kind of, we're still figuring out the sleep thing. It is.
It's exhausting. It's so hard.
Yeah.
It's so hard, but so rewarding at the same time.
Especially it's when he wakes up and then you just hear him calling out mama and you're simultaneously I'm so tired, but also this is so sweet. It's it's just hard. It's both. It's parenting is both things at the same time a lot, I think.
Yeah, no, totally. My son is a cuddler. And he crawls in the bed every night, in the middle of the night with us every night. And then and it drives you crazy, but it's also the sweetest thing. He goes, Mama, hold me. I'm holding you. He says, tighter, Mama, tighter. Hold me tighter. Gosh. It's the sweetest thing, but at 4 a.m, you're like, I'm trying to sleep. Yeah,
that's
but
really
they're sweet. They're good. They're sweet.
So you picked a sperm donor, and then you said you did IUI and then IVF.
Yes.
What was the timeline for that process? And also, what emotions came up for both of you through that experience?
We started out with IUI at a fertility clinic, and it didn't take at first. We tried 5 tries, and I was actually away doing a show. So Anne was going through it on her own in New York, and she was having a hard. I think she thought it was going to happen right away, and I think I was a little bit removed from it. I got to get a kind of a perspective of the father in a way. I feel like I was a little removed from it because I wasn't going through the stuff, and I was actually out of town. But it got her down, and I remember one night she got really down. I don't want to speak for her, but I just remember one night she got down. And then the doctor, in the middle of our 5th or 6th cycle, I was there at this point, and the doctor said, you know what, let's switch to IVF in the middle of it. And so we did a switch to IVF right then. We got the meds, blah, blah, blah. We didn't know that our insurance, though they covered IUI, did not cover IVF, and nobody explained that to us. So we went through the whole thing, and then we go to the fertility clinic to do the transfer or the retrieval. I think it was the retrieval. And they handed us a bill. Here, you owe us this. And we were like, what? So we had to figure that out. That was fun. And then it's oh my God, we regret this. We're going to regret this. But you're not going to regret it. You're never going to regret it. We figured it out. We had to liquidate some of my wife's pension and pay it. And we got a loan through the pension, whole thing. But we figured it out. Wow. We paid the money, and she got pregnant on the first IVF.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah. So even with all that stress, it actually worked out miraculously. Incredible. So, and then a pretty uneventful pregnancy, and daughter is born, beautiful, great, ba-da-da. And then we were like, okay, we're going to wait till she's 18 months. We want them to be 2 years apart. Here's another lesson in parenting and the lack of control. We wanted them to be 2.5 years apart. So, okay, we're going to start trying at 18 months because I'm younger. I'm going to get pregnant right away, obviously. So we started in secret trying. And I was ready to get secretly pregnant and not tell anyone. I wanted it to be this big surprise. And then tried and tried and tried and tried. IUI, all the medications you can imagine. I did over 10, 15, I don't even know IUIs.
Wow.
I did 3 IVFs, 2.5 years or almost 3 years of unexplained infertility. And it sucked. But I also, I think that I was a little bit lucky when I was going through it because I already had a child.
Mm-hmm.
I was already a mom. But folks said to me, when I was going through this, because I had to tell people eventually because I was on so many medications and constantly going to doctor's appointments. People say the craziest thing, oh my God, you might never become a mother. When I'd be like, I am a mom. I am a mom.
Oh,
remember?
Oh
I know I didn't give birth to her, but that's my kid. People say things without thinking.
People don't know what to say. And then it's just don't say anything. Please don't. Yeah, that's really tough.
Yeah. So it finally ended up working. I switched doctors. I read this book called It Starts with the Egg, which I think helped me a lot. And it lays out different herbal plans that you can try for whatever you think your issue is. I had unexplained infertility, so I had to just kind of pick and choose.
When you have unexplained fertility, does that mean you just never really know why? So it's still a question mark kind of forever. Wow.
Yeah, they had no idea. Everything was working. Everything was in working order. All the tests were regular. I just was not getting pregnant. We ran out of sperm. We used the same donor. We ran out of sperm. We had to bring him out of retirement because they retire donors after a certain number of families are successful. We had to bring him out of retirement. They will do that if it's for a sibling, and you have to go to the sperm bank. You have to ask, and then they ask the donor, and then the donor can say yes or no. He said yes, which is another reason why I think we chose a great one. And then had to buy up all that sperm and keep on going. And then eventually I switched doctors, started acupuncture, started this little herbal routine, which I don't know what was the thing that made the change happen, but second try with the new doctor, lightly medicated IUI, I got pregnant.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
How did you handle the emotional roller coaster, I would say, of going through that for almost 3 years?
Well, I think, like I said before, I had my daughter and she was a handful. So that kept me pretty occupied. I was busy. And I don't know how I made it through. I never got too down about it. I was never to the point of devastation. And I really think it's because I think my daughter helped me through it, but also there's a quote that I live by that it's like my mantra that I say to myself whenever times are hard. And I think it was a John Lennon quote. Everything's going to be okay in the end. If it's not okay, it's not the end. And that it keeps me moving forward. And I said that to myself like crazy during this time. And I just also, in my head, I knew I was going to get pregnant. I knew it. I knew it was going to happen. And I wouldn't let doubt come in about that fact. I didn't know how it was going to happen, but I knew in my heart of hearts that I was going to carry a child someday. And
that's beautiful.
I guess, but if it hadn't worked out, I don't know.
It'd be hard. It'd be really hard. Yeah.
I had one moment, the last IVF, and I allowed myself to really grieve for a couple days. And there was one day I didn't want to get out of bed. I don't think I got out of bed. I hid it from my wife. I didn't want her to know how upset I was, which I don't recommend doing that. But I got there at one point. This is where I'm going to sound crazy. I had this dream at the end of this little stint that I went through where I dreamt, it's like embarrassing saying it, rainbow wings sprouted out of my shoulder blades. And with that sprouting, all of the pain and devastation washed off of me. I woke up relieved. I don't know. It's the weirdest thing. And then for the next week, I saw rainbows everywhere. I mean, it was like June, so it was Pride Month, but I saw a rainbow. I was like, it's a sign. It's a sign. And then that's when I made the decision to switch doctors and do all this stuff. Because I was at the point where I was thinking, all right, I think that I have to stop now. I can't do this anymore. And then I didn't. I made changes, and then I got pregnant.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm just struck by the amount of strength to me, I feel like it would take to navigate that. So I'm just really impressed by you and figuring out how to make that happen.
Well, thanks. I don't know if it was strength or just pure stubbornness. Like,
well, I like both, to be honest.
Yeah, I was like, I'm not going to fail at this. This is not going to get me. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I got pregnant, and then he was born.
You said you had a tough pregnancy. What happened during your pregnancy?
Oh, I thought I was just going to be like, ooh, yeah, rubbing my belly and, like, taking the photo. I was nauseous for the first 20 plus weeks. Pure nausea. It was hell. And then the last part of the last half was fine, but I wanted a glass of wine. Like, I wanted sushi. I wanted everything I couldn't have, and I thought I would just embrace everything, but I was like, no, this is, I don't know. I think I was tired. And then once he came, I thought I was going to be like Mother Nature breastfeeding, and I wanted to breastfeed him till he was like 4, and the breastfeeding didn't work out. It was not what I thought it was going to be. None of it.
How did you adjust? Because I think we can get so connected to these visions we have of like who we are in the identity of mother, and then also how we want to mother. And there can be a lot of grief in letting some of that go. So how did you navigate that?
I think that my daughter, my firstborn, really taught me a lot of lessons because she came out a very strong-willed individual. She is a spirited child. And from day one, she was a spirited child. Like, she cried the entire first night we brought her home. Like, my wife called the hospital. It was like, I think you need to take her back. Something's wrong. Like, it was a lot. And I think that she taught me a lot about letting go. And so because of her, I became the mother she needed. I had to be a more firm mother than I ever thought I was going to be. I had to figure out ways to lay down guidelines because my particular child needs guidelines, and she needs some firm lines in place for navigating life. And it's just, every individual is different, but I never thought I was going to be that firm mother. I mean, I'm very loving as well and kind, but like, I'm a different mother because of the daughter I got than I ever thought I would be. And so I think she prepared me for the crap I was going to go through when my son came into the world, and the breastfeeding's not working out. He won't latch. Like, I had this plan, but I think she prepared me for letting go and being flexible and just, okay, all right. It took me a long time to get over the breastfeeding, though. My wife wanted me to stop trying for like 2 months before I finally said, okay, fine. I give up. I give in. I'm not going to be the breastfeeding mom that I thought I was going to be.
I am not people should breastfeed no matter what. I'm a fed is best kind of person. But again, going back to some of the conversations I've had in the past, I just know there can be a lot of grief there. So I'm just curious about unpacking that decision making and how you let go.
It was really hard. I was in a lot of pain because he never really latched. He never fully latched. I was pumping constantly and also trying to get him to latch constantly. I always had something on my boobs. They were in pain. And I think I had a moment, I was walking to pick my daughter up from school, and I had the stroller and my boobs were just throbbing and painful because I could never get all the milk out because I'm, and I think I called my wife and I was like, I think I'm going to stop. I can't do it anymore. I'm crying. Like, okay, that's it. I'm done. I can't struggle with this anymore. I'm not enjoying this time with my newborn because I'm so stressed out about getting him to latch onto my boobs. And it could be a lot easier and he'll be fine. And I pumped for a little bit. I pumped for like another month. I got him to like the 4.5 month point. So I pumped for like 1 more month and then we switched to formula. And then he got RSV and he ended up in the ER overnight and the nurse made me feel guilty. And I had just stopped like a week before. And the nurse, and she said, are you breastfeeding? And I said, and I stayed overnight with him. No, I just stopped. Oh, well, you can start. You can start right now. You can start again. You should start. I was like, oh, and then I cried. People put shame on moms who, you know, some moms just don't want to do it. And you know what? More power to you. Do what you need to do. You know, the babies are going to be fine. They're going to be fine.
Yes.
But there is a lot of mom shaming that goes into this whole breastfeeding thing.
There really is. It's a tricky topic.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's worth unpacking because it is so loaded, but it really, I always find myself wanting to be like, whatever you want to do is like, the thing that I kind of return to for me is like, I just wish I had known it's not necessarily a straight line. Because I think I had this idea like it's either going to work or it's not going to work. And I didn't know like there are a lot of different ways to decide what looks good for you. So
Yeah.
it's a tricky one.
Yeah. And my son was tongue-tied and lip-tied.
Mm.
And so that was a big part of the non-latching. And we got the procedure where they cut the ties, which is also a heartbreaking decision to make. And then I felt guilty that I had done that because I just wanted him to breastfeed. There were other reasons for why they said to do it, but that's also controversial too. And then it didn't work in the end, which is super frustrating. So
yeah. Yeah, it's kind of around every corner. There's an opportunity for feeling like, am I making the right decision or guilt about the decision you're making? It's really challenging.
Yeah, totally.
And it sneaks up on you.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to talk to you a little bit about your experience with second parent adoption.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that you guys went through?
Oh, yeah.
Will you tell me about that?
Yeah, totally. So second parent adoption is in most of our families, if not all of them, but most of our families, there's always one parent who does not have a biological connection just because of the physical makeup of our bodies. Mm-hmm. And so in order to guarantee that nothing terrible happens to our families, we have to make sure that we get a second parent adoption. So you have to get a lawyer, you have to have a social worker come and visit your house. It's an adoption process, like a step parent adoption. Like if mm-hmm. you were to want your new spouse to adopt your kids who the father had or the mother had signed over the rights, it's the same kind of thing. It's involved in a lot of paperwork and it's invasive, but we have to do it to protect our families, to make sure that both the parents are considered legally the parents of our children, even though we made them together and mm-hmm. had everything to do with every single decision regarding the making and then the rearing of our children. We still have to do that. But yes, and we did it. Some couples get all the paperwork and everything set up even before the baby comes out of the womb, so that all they have to do is sign the papers once the baby is there. Those are the prepared folks in the community. And then some are like me and my wife who were like, we got to do that. We got to do that. Oh, we got to do that. How do we do that? And it took us until after we had my son. So my daughter was already 4. And I think my son was 2 when we started the process. But I have heard so many scary stories on my podcast of folks who didn't do it and things that can go south. And then we've had lawyers on the podcast saying how important it is for our families to protect our rights, that I finally was scared enough to actually get the lawyer, do the stuff. And it took me like a year to get it all done because I hate paperwork and it's a lot of paperwork. And then the social worker has to visit your house and it's a whole thing.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm. You have to do a social, it's just like fostering or adopting. You would have to get a social worker visit to, they come and they just make sure that the environment is safe for a child to come in. Which is hilarious because we already have the babies, but okay.
The whole time.
Yeah. It's just funny. I had been lucky. I had interviewed a gay mom social worker on the podcast who lived in New York, and we had her do it. And it was during the pandemic. That's great. So it was over Zoom. So we just walked the computer around, which is amazing. But we had folks talk about how they got the house smelling so nice and they had cookies out. You get so bunched up about this person's coming into your home and judging your home. And
absolutely. Well, yeah, I bet it could be really vulnerable depending on, because you don't know necessarily who's coming in and the stakes are so high,
Right. And we were lucky. We knew that this woman was a gay mom, so she was empathetic to our story. Yeah. But you don't know. And if you're in certain states that aren't as accepting, you really don't know what you're going to get, which is scary. And right now, that's even more scary.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
The world right now is just burning.
It's
just devastating. And so for so many reasons, it's just absolutely devastating. It kind of on that topic, I guess, a little segue. The world I guess maybe I'll say the United States because that's what I can speak to better, but our society tends to be set up to be pretty favoring of cis and hetero lifestyles and structures. And I know on your podcast, you asked the question of what it's like to live as an LGBTQ family in a world built for straights. What have you discovered through the podcast about that and through your own experience?
Yes, we are showing up in a world that is not designed for us nor created for us. But we are a resilient group of individuals, and we are creative AF, to use a phrase that the kids use. The ways we have to come up with how we're going to create our families. There are so many ways that our community makes families. We come in so many different sizes, shapes, genders, colors. It's amazing the creativity we use to make our families. And so, yes, we're showing up in a world that is not created for us, but we come to the table with so much. We come with intentionality. We're prepared. Once we bring these kids into the world, we are prepared for what's going to happen. And we have to protect our kids now. Now, any internalized homophobia that we had, and we all have it, let's be real, we all have it. Society runs deep. Any internalized homophobia that we had before, we now have to work through and try to get rid of it and show pride in who we are and how our family shows up in the world, because those little humans are now watching. There are huge stakes now, because we don't want our children to feel any shame about the family that they were born into. And so, like, the times from before when I would take a cab and the cab driver would be like, "You going to see your husband?" And I could just let it slide and be like, "Yeah, I'm going to see my husband," or whatever. I can't do that anymore, because if my kids are in the cab, I have to say, "Nope, not going to see my husband. I have a wife. They have 2 moms. I have to show up for them so that they see pride modeled, you know?" And so that's what it's like, living in a world that is not designed for your community. It's like it's a constant, the coming out never ends. Once you have kids, the coming out never ends. And then they start doing it, which is hilarious. Then they start like, you know, non-assuming person, not realizing what they're saying, will be like, "Where's daddy? Oh, you must look like daddy. You must look just like daddy." And my daughter will be like, "I don't have a dad. I have 2 moms." That's so funny. You would think that, you know, like she has no shame and no fear about it. And
I
like,
love it.
This one older woman, it's always harder with older people who say things and they don't realize what they're saying, but I don't want to shock them and be like, I'm a freaking lesbian, lady. Like, I don't want to make people feel uncomfortable, but I do have to model pride for my daughter. And there was this one moment, we were sitting in a waiting room and this older woman said, "Oh my goodness, you guys are carbon copies of each other, the 2 of you. You look so much alike." And my daughter looked at me and we gave each other this look, because we love it when people say that about us, because we're not biologically related. And then she goes to the lady, she goes, "That's so funny because she didn't even born me." And the lady was like confused, but me and Rose, my daughter, we laughed about it and carried on, you know? And so like, it gets to a point where they start doing it for you, and you see they love it. Like, they love their families. They love their 2 moms. You know, and who knows, down the line, they might have issues, and we'll work through them together. But what child doesn't have issues in their teenage years? Yeah. Let's just hope that we're not ruining them for the gay reason. There's going to be other things. Like, they had too much TV. I don't know, too much McDonald's. I don't know, but you're going to hate us for something.
Or not enough, you know? If it's
Right,
not
exactly.
too much, it's not enough.
Yeah.
I'm also wondering, like, what are ways that as a society we can better show up for queer families?
The first thing I go to all the time is don't assume. Don't assume that everybody is straight. And then we can get deep into all the different facets of our LGBTQ community, like genders and things like that. But at the core, just don't assume. Let's just stop assuming we know people. Because you might think that I'm a lady with a husband and I'm not. And me having to tell you is as uncomfortable for me as it is for you. Yeah. So let's just stop with let's just stop assuming that we're all cookie cutter, because we're not. And I think that for me, that's the best way you can show up for me, because I don't want to have to correct you. I really don't. It's uncomfortable, It's uncomfortable to have to correct people. So if we could all just get rid of these assumptions that we're all this heteronormative, we're not. We're so vast and beautiful and varied and different. And let's embrace that.
Yes. Yeah, we stop being curious. We miss people's stories. We miss people's individuality. We miss learning from people because we just assume they're just like, what our perception of the world is.
Right. And the more we can open up and embrace our differences, the more beautiful we're going to become as a world, as humankind. We're so vast. We're so different.
Yeah.
And I love seeing everybody's differences. And I want my kids to be weird. I want them to be different.
Yeah.
I want to teach them that there's beauty in difference. There's beauty in weirdness. There's beauty in your differences.
Yes.
That's what you need to hone in on, your differences. That's what makes you unique. That's what makes you beautiful. Very well said.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Is there anything that we haven't talked about yet that you want to address before we wrap up?
I mean, we could talk a little bit about my show and the transition I'm going through. So Robin, my co-host, has recently had to leave Ovaries for personal reasons. It's going to keep going, but I've been in a crazy, scary transition place these past couple weeks. So E, my new co-host, is coming in, and they're gender nonconforming, non-binary. They just came out as that at the age of 47, so we're navigating it together. And they're Black, and so they bring a whole different perspective. And they're a mom. They've went through a divorce. And so I'm bringing more perspectives. I really want the show to reflect our entire community. I want it to be inclusive. So in the vein of inclusivity, trying to switch things up and add more perspective to the show.
That's so fantastic.
Yeah, it's scary and fantastic.
It is.
And it's a big transition. We talk a lot about transitions on my podcast because, LGBTQ, but this is a different kind of transition. And it's been scary, but also very exciting.
Well, and like the fun thing I think about any of these podcasts where it's part of it is being vulnerable is you're sharing that journey and saying like, I don't know, like we're going to adjust. I don't know if this is right. Maybe I share more, maybe I share less. I don't know, but you find it and you get to do it together, which is nice.
Yeah. And you did that in the episode I listened of your show about you and your husband's fight.
Oh, yeah.
And that was great because it gives you a little glimpse into your reality. And so it behooves us to be completely transparent and real in our dealings with whatever stories we're telling. So I appreciated you doing that. That was nice.
Thank you. That's wonderful. Well, where can people find you?
So on social media, we are at Ovaries Talk on all of them: Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok. Although I forget to post to TikTok a lot, so don't expect a lot on the TikTok. I'm trying to do better on the TikTok. Our website is Ovaries Talk, www.overiestalk.com, and our Gmail. You can always email us if you have questions or you want to be on the show or want to just say that you love the podcasts. overiestalk@gmail.com.
Yay. Well, thank you so much for being here. I've loved talking to you.
Oh, good. Thank you for having me. I'm really happy to be on.
Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Week by Week. Please subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcast. Follow us on Instagram at Week by Week Podcast and visit our blog at weekbyweekpodcast.com. Check out the show notes for more information about our guests and additional resources I used in reference during this episode. This podcast was produced during the COVID-19 pandemic and recorded remotely. Our show today was produced by me, Celeste Busa, Dave Hill, and Douglas Sarine, and produced and edited by Colleen Beasley. Week by Week is a Gumption Pictures production.